Hello, Diocese of the Rio Grande. This is your weekly update for the week of Proper 6, 2020. Today, I am pleased to share with you some information about the ordination of the soon-to-be Reverend Grace Kim to the diaconate in the Episcopal Church. We're going to talk a little bit about the changing dynamic and landscape in terms of the COVID spikes that are happening across our diocese. And I want to share with you one story from the diocese about a small church that is growing and strengthening in spite of the virus. Later today, by Zoom, I'm going to get to be involved in the ordination of Grace Kim to the diaconate in the Episcopal Church. She's a chaplain in the U.S. Army, serving right now in Killeen, Texas at Fort Hood. She is on her way to take up a new assignment in Hawaii. Captain Kim is a wonderful chaplain. She has a tremendous heart for the gospel. She extends hospitality and the love of God through her smile, through her wisdom, and through her diligent care for all those she is in contact with. Her work as a chaplain involves some wonderful things like leading programs called Strong Bonds, which help the families of military personnel maintain their strong bonds through the stresses and strains and fears of military life. Captain Kim leads workshops for women in the military in order to help support and strengthen their work. As a part of the special relationship that the Diocese of the Rio Grande has with the Bishop of the Armed Forces, our diocese has the joy and the privilege of helping to walk with all of those military chaplains in the United States Armed Forces who are already serving as chaplains, but they are chaplains in other denominations. When those chaplains want to become Episcopal deacons and priests, the Diocese of the Rio Grande is their sponsoring diocese. And so we have a team of people who work on the Anglican formation piece wherever those soldiers or sailors or airmen or Marines or Coast Guard folks are deployed throughout the world. We work with them remotely on their Anglican formation. Our Standing Committee and Commission on Ministry work with them, and I get to be the ordaining bishop. In this particular moment, because of COVID-19, it breaks my heart, but I'm not able to be there in person to lay hands on the head of Grace Kim to ordain her to the diaconate. But as God would have it, Captain Grace Kim is currently stationed at Fort Hood in Killeen, Texas. And the Bishop Suffragan of Texas, who is based in that area, is Kay Ryan, a product of the Diocese of the Rio Grande and someone who is so dearly beloved throughout this diocese. Kay is going to be doing the ordination on my behalf, and through the wonders of Zoom, I'll be able to be there to participate. So watch this feed a little bit later. Join us online for the ordination of Grace Kim and a few others in the Diocese of Texas. She's a wonderful human being and child of God, and it is a joy to have her as a deacon in the Episcopal Church on her way towards being a priest. Congratulations, Grace Kim. We're proud to have you with us. God bless you. I'm sure you're paying attention to the news. COVID-19 is spiking in the southern part of our diocese. I'm talking about the Big Bend region. I'm talking about Marfa and Alpine. I'm talking about caseloads being up in El Paso and in Doña Ana County. Those parts of our diocese that up until recently had not been experiencing much COVID infestation are now starting to see spikes. So as we said, we've got to get really good at our phase 1 responses, because if the spikes come in your area, we may need to step back from phase 2 into phase 1 in order to do the best we can in all of our churches to reduce risk. And just remember, reducing risk involves reducing the number of people that we're in contact with and reducing the intensity of the interaction with those people. I know all of your bishops' committees and vestries are working carefully at both the phase 1 workbook. Most of you have finished that. The results have been published. And many of you are working on the phase 2 workbook. We've been through the approval process with many of you on that. As we work together, please stay in touch with your local health care authorities so that if there's a change in the risk based on the number of cases of COVID-19 in your area, you and your vestry adapt accordingly. I'm so excited about how the congregations in the Diocese of the Rio Grande have responded to COVID-19. Over 80% of our congregations now have video ministries. They're taking the liturgy online, and many of our congregations are seeing their viewer numbers far outpace their in-person average Sunday attendance. But today I want to share with you the story of one small rural congregation in the Diocese of the Rio Grande. This is a congregation where most of the folks are above the age of 62, 63. This is a congregation where people live far spread out and rural from one another. This is a congregation where the telephone lines actually fade in and fade out because the quality of the technology that brings the phone into one of these towns, sometimes the senior warden from that place can't get a call out. So this is a community where taking things online, using Zoom and using Facebook Live is not really necessarily the best option. But when I met with their bishops' committee and their vicar, I was so excited by the way this small rural congregation has responded. So let me tell you what they're doing. As COVID-19 started, the priest realized that it would not be safe for everybody to gather in the building. The priest realized that communications were such that many of the folks would not have reliable internet access. The priest knew that these older folks who were sheltering at home would also have a tendency to feel lonely and isolated, and they would need their church more than ever. And so their Sunday morning practice since the beginning of COVID-19 has involved the priest and one lay person, one lay leader, getting together at the church early on a Sunday morning, and they celebrate the Eucharist together. They then consecrate a pile of individually wrapped hosts and with a little bit of wine that they got from a Roman Catholic liturgical supply place, and they consecrate those elements, and then the priest gets in his car and he goes house to house delivering the sacrament to the homebound people. He said, the difference between there's 30 of us and we would deliver to the 2 that couldn't be among us, there's no real difference theologically between that and what we're doing now, where there's 2 of us and we're delivering to the 30 others that aren't able to be with us. What they've said is, when we come to your house, put a plate outside on the stoop or on your front porch. And when the priest arrives, he goes up wearing a mask, wearing gloves, having never touched the consecrated elements. He goes up and he puts them on a plate with the Sunday readings, with a written sermon, and with a newsletter, with some theological reflection and other things. Those households that didn't have their own prayer book, he brought them one. And there are instructions in the packet that talk about how to receive the Eucharist. So what happens is, the priest arrives, there's a plate out on the front door. The priest goes up and puts the sacrament on the plate and then steps back. The person comes to the door, opens, and receives the sacrament, often there in the presence of the priest. If there's a need for a pastoral conversation, they have it at a distance, the priest outside, the person in their doorway. If there's a need to hear a confession, that can happen. And the priest is engaging with his people there. Over time, when the priest has arrived at the household, instead of there being an empty plate, now more often than not the plate has an offering in it. So the priest comes forward, collects the offering, leaves the sacrament, has a pastoral conversation, and then moves on to the next household. It takes a while doing those personal deliveries, and as he's been doing this, the congregation is growing. The priest said when they got to about 50 deliveries, he realized the day was getting too long, and so the lay leader and he decided to split up. One goes south, one goes north, and then the next week they reverse it. So this priest says, every month I'm personally looking at and in contact with everyone in my congregation. bringing them the sacrament, hearing their pastoral cares and concerns. And he said some of the people have said they look forward to that moment every single week. It feels like Christmas morning, that the presence of God is being brought into their homes and into their household. This priest and his lay leader are now delivering the sacrament to over 75 people every Sunday. The church has more than doubled, and the church has never been in better financial shape, the treasurer says, because the people are putting their offering there and receiving the Holy Sacrament. I wanted you to hear just one more creative way that the congregations in the Diocese of the Rio Grande are continuing to be church, even though our buildings need to be closed, in ways that are growing the church and strengthening the faithful and bringing the gospel of Jesus Christ and the message of love into the homes of the people in the Diocese of the Rio Grande. So don't give up, my friends in the diocese. We may have a long way to go with this COVID thing, but the presence of God is with us. The love of God is strengthening us, and we have the power through the Holy Spirit to persist and to persevere and to walk in love wherever God leads us. God bless you. Have a wonderful week.